And so we've been talking about, for the last few weeks, we've been talking about how God gives us a vision that breaks our heart. We've been talking about how surrounding ourselves with the right people to be on the same mission that we are, to get to the level that we would like to get to. We've been talking about authenticating that to make sure that it is from God. We also learned even last week that we have a God that wants us to be successful. We have a God that wants us to make it to the mountaintop of wherever it is that God has placed a desire in your heart to be better, to be more, and to be something. And so we looked at characteristics of successful people. And some of those we found is they read books, they forgive others, they talk about ideas and not people. We talked about those things last week. But today, here's what I want to spend some time in, because there's something that always sticks out to me in that video. It's within around the 2-minute range. He says a lot of people don't get to their dreams or their visions because of fear. Number one, fear of failure, and I got that. I understand that. You're afraid to put yourself out there and fail. But there's something else that he said, fear of success. What if I get there and I can't handle it? What if I get there and I can't maintain it? Because I would like to suggest to you that it's one thing to be successful. It's one thing to get to the goal. It's one thing to climb the mountain. It's one thing to achieve the thing that God has put in your life. But here is the question. Can you maintain it? Can you sustain it? And can you build on it? Because I would like to suggest to you that even harder than becoming successful is handling success. And a lot of us don't know how to handle success, therefore we never experience success. As a matter of fact, if you go throughout history, you see that there are a lot of people who struggle successfully. I looked up some statistics and found this. In order to make it to the NBA, that's a very difficult task. A lot of young men grow up with dreams. Some, especially young African-American men, grow up with dreams to go into the NBA. I'll never forget what Stephen Curry, they invited him to come to an inner city school and talk and pour into these young men about being able to achieve their dreams and accomplish going to the NBA. And Stephen Curry rolled up in there and said, y'all not gonna make it. He said, not everybody gets to the NBA. And then check this out, the statistic is crazy. Those who get into the NBA, who get these lucrative contracts, the lowest contract is over $300,000, $400,000. The statistics say that 70% leave the NBA broke. See, they got there, success, but they could not handle it, so they leave broke. Are y'all following me? One of the greatest fighters of all time, Mike Tyson, the youngest heavyweight that this world has ever seen, could not only handle success once, but twice. As a matter of fact, we went to see his stand-up show, and he said that after he went to prison, he came out of prison, went to his bank account, and saw $300 million in his account, and ran through that. You see, it's one thing to be successful. But the question is, can we handle success? Can we handle success? Success is a scary thing. It's sometimes you get there and you've achieved all that you needed to achieve, and you look and you've opened up the practice and you've now gotten the degree, and you've gotten all these things, and the question is, now what? What do I do? And so what I want to talk about today just a little bit is how it is that we as a people of God can handle success. Is that all right, everybody? Now, I want to do this, though, because you're wondering what biblical account can you give for handling success? I actually want to spend some time and talk about the children of Israel and their journey and how they got to the promised land, because for them, success was the promised land. And I want to look and see how did they handle that success. Now, in order to do that, though, I have to lay a foundation, and I know it's not Black History Month, but I am Black every day of the year. We're going to just talk about a little something. Is that all right, everybody? Because you've got to get this foundation to understand where they're coming from and what took place when they get to this promised land. But if you notice, obviously we know that Israel is in slavery. They're enslaved by the Egyptians. And what the Egyptians have done is they have set up a very unique structure. Within their structure, there are a lot of different ways, of course, that oppression can take place. But two I really want to focus focus on, which are the most successful. The two places of emphasis I have found through studying the book of Exodus and also through this amazing book, we're going to do a series on it entitled The Sabbath as Resistance. It's literally the best book I've ever read on the Sabbath. And no, it wasn't written by a Seventh-day Adventist, but you'll understand why it was the best book I've ever read on this concept of why God says, remember the Sabbath day and to keep it holy. I'm not going to preach that yet, but you're going to get a little taste of it. But inside of Egypt, we find that there is a socio-economic oppression that is taking place. The people of God are being oppressed socially, and they are being oppressed economically. Their social oppression comes from this idea that the pagan gods within themselves were not simply gods that were contrary to the God Yahweh or the God, of course, that we know, but it was a gods that pushed inside of their economic system materialism. Are y'all following me? In other words, Egypt is all about work, commodity, gain, this is mine, I have to get this. And the reason I have to get this is because the social structure is that everybody is dressed a certain way. Everybody is looked a certain way. The gods are all decked out, silver and, gold and all different kinds of things. And so Israel is constantly surrounded with a social structure that encourages them to always want more, to always look like this, to always want to be like that. That is the social structure by which they are now living in. But then there's an economic structure that is very interesting as well. Because what Pharaoh did, and you can look at this through Exodus 5 and all throughout there's so many different places in the Bible, but Pharaoh tells Israel, y'all have to work to put money back into this economy so that we can create the stuff that people want and need because we're a materialistic society. Somebody's not with me yet, but you're going to catch up in just a moment. Now, here's what's crazy. They would work so hard, even to the point that they had to make bricks without straw. And they have to work and work and work and put all of this money into an economy that doesn't even belong to them, that doesn't even support them, and does not even benefit them. But all of their work, all of their energy, all of their stuff is going into a place that in no way benefits them at all. Now, if I can help y'all out for just a little bit, the success of slavery, I need y'all to follow this. And some people like to talk about this idea of racism's gone and all that different kind of stuff. I can tell you this, let's call it. If people want to buy into that lie, that's fine. But let me tell you something that has not left. It might not be color of skin and all that different kind of stuff, but there is a social and economic oppression that is taking place. A social oppression that says this: what you see on TV is who you need to be. A materialistic kind of oppression that says, if you don't have this car, if you don't have this outfit, if your hair is not this length, if your look is not like this, then you are not fitting in. And so watch what we will do. We will work ourselves to death to get the stuff so we can fit in more. Now, here's what's crazy. It's not only us working, but check this out. I'm going to use hair for an example. The hair industry is a billion-dollar industry that we put our money into that doesn't benefit our own economy and community. But we work to get the money, to get the hair, and we don't benefit from the transaction. Yes, we do. We benefit because now we're more socially acceptable to the materialistic society that has told us if we don't have this, then we don't fit in. And so we put $1 billion into an industry that African Americans don't even own. Slavery. It isn't incredible. And listen, y'all, we talking about African American. I could go through a whole list of the kind of economic and social oppression that each of us are still experiencing in a unique way. And here's what's crazy about us. Now, this is, to me, this is a color thing. This is an everything thing. Here's what's crazy about some people. Watch this. We will be broke, but we're going to look good. We're going to have the latest this. We're going to have the latest that. But watch this. We will work to get that, but we don't invest in ourselves. And the success and genius of Egypt was to get other people to work, and the work never benefited them. Now, I'm not preaching this yet, but check this out. Under that auspices is God saying, remember the Sabbath day. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, and you're not going to work on that day because you're coming out of a place where all you do is work. And so here's what God is telling them. Here's what he's going to say what success is. Success is going to be for you all that I'm going to pull you out of a place where you work and it doesn't go back to you. Now you're going to go to a land that when you work that land, it's going to be yours. Are y'all with me? So you got to understand where Israel's coming from and where God is trying to take them to understand what success is. Now, some of you are saying, well, Pastor, wait a second. What do you mean about you and it's about us? What do you mean building us up? I thought this whole series was about us making a dent for somebody else. Listen to what God wanted to take place. As they moved to their own land, 40 acres in it. See, land is important because it's something you own. It's something that belongs to you. And God is like, I'm giving you all something that belongs to you. So when you work it, it's yours. And so now as they work this land and they develop their economy, which is based on a different system of giving, it's not based on materialism, a different social structure. What God's hope was that as Israel became successful in their own land, when others saw them, they would want to be like Israel and not Israel want to be like them. They would want to be like Israel, not Israel wanting to be like them. Why can't we let it where people want to be like us? Why are we always trying to be like everybody else? So under this context, Israel is moving out of Egypt, which is their vision, their goal, their drive. They have goals in order to get out of Egypt. You saw the strategic plan that Moses put in place. Part of that plan, put some blood on the doorway. So when the angel of death comes, y'all will be ready, pack up what you need. We're going to come out. And so they're going through and accomplishing the strategic plan, and they're experiencing success. And so here's what God does. Throughout Exodus, and particularly in Exodus 20 and Exodus 32, he calls up Moses. He says, listen, Moses, we're about to get closer to the promised land. It's taking a little longer because of some issues along the way. He's all, but here's what we need to do. He's all, I need to give you 10 principles that are going to govern this new social society. He's all, these aren't 10 regulations that are going to hold you down. They're not 10 rules that if you don't, this is what's going to happen. He said, no, I'm pulling you out of one mentality. And these 10 principles are the new mentality that are going to govern the society. We're not going to covet each other's stuff. Y'all not with me right now. We're not going to take what belongs to our neighbor. We're going to tell the truth and be honest. We're gonna be forthright and forthcoming. As a matter of fact, we're gonna even take days off together. We're gonna be able to keep only one God and not 25 different gods that represent different things. We're not gonna kill each other. We're not gonna lie. We're not gonna steal. We're gonna honor our parents. We're not gonna try and take their inheritance because we're all gonna honor and do all this stuff. This is a society, Moses, that we're going to build up. And so I don't want you to look at these 10 commandments as these laws I'm hanging over your head, but these are 10 things that are going to help govern the way we're going to live now. It isn't a shame that the devil has taken something as precious as that and made the law of God restrictive when it's actually the most liberating thing we've ever experienced. So Moses is up there, and he's talking to God for a second time. In Exodus 32, I didn't give Jason the text, so give him a moment while he pulls those up. I didn't give him the text today, so give him a moment while he pulls those up on the screen. But Exodus 32, while they're getting this information, he's talking to God, and God just finished talking to him about the Sabbath as a sign between me and you. Let me tell you what starts to take place. I love to read it more than just explain it to you, because we read at Mount Rubida. Now, when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people assembled about Aaron and said to him, "Come, make us a god who will go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up from the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." And Aaron said to him, "Tear off the gold rings which are in the ears of your wives, your sons and your daughters, and bring them to me." See, y'all thought we started that, brothers wearing jewelry, huh? Doing that back in the day. Now check this out. Look at verse 3. Then all the people tore off the gold rings which were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. And he took this from their hand and fashioned it with a graving tool and made it into a molten calf. And listen to what they said. "This is your God, O Israel, who brought you up from the land of Egypt." The first way that you need to learn to handle success is don't give somebody else credit that belongs to God. Now, here's the thing that I want to share with each and every single one of us. I understand that when you graduated, you put the time in the study, and you got the 4.0, and you did all of the internships, and you did all that kind of stuff, and you worked hard, and I'm so glad for your hard work. But I'm going to tell you this right now. With all your hard work, if it had not been for God, because there was somebody else who had a 4.0 just like you. There was somebody else who knew somebody else. But because God talked to the chancellor, because God talked to your boss, you got the job. So yes, it was the degree, but it was the God behind the degree. And the thing that kills me is some of us become successful and forget the God who got us there. Getting all educated, getting all excited because a business opened and all this stuff took place. And we need to remember that if God was not working behind the scenes, you never would have gotten to where you got. And there are some things that God was doing that you will not figure out until you get to the other side. But some of us have become too educated, and some of us have become too caught up in ourselves that we think that when we got there, it was us. And we start giving credit to our work ethic and credit to all this other stuff when the credit belongs to God. What you talking about, Israel? This is the God that pulled you out of the land of Egypt. When the Red Sea opened up, where was the molten calf? When there was a pillar of fire by night and a cloud by day, where was the golden calf? When you were in the dumps, when you couldn't figure it out, it was the Holy Spirit who touched your mind. Don't forget that. And too many of us get there and we forget God. We forget God. I'll tell you what happens. A lot of my young people go away to school, accomplish all these things, and they come back less spiritual than when they left. Because somewhere along the line, we forgot God. And that's the greatest tool of the devil, because here's what I'm finding. It's not just God who's going to get you there. It's God who's going to keep you there. Is going to keep you in that success. And so the first way to handle your success is don't forget that it was God who got you there. Now, the question very clearly, Pastor, what does it mean to forget? Like, how do I not forget that it was God who got me there? You need to be just as dependent when you arrive. Scratch that. More dependent. You see, think about it. When you were trying to figure it out, your prayer life was crazy. Oh, God, please help me this, help me this, help me this. Solve this, solve this, solve this, solve that. I'm going to be in number 16 next, Jay. So help me this, help me this, help me that. But then God helped you, and there was no issue. and you stop praying. You see, my prayer life doesn't increase simply when Rubidoux begins to increase. As a matter of fact, when we start getting where we need to go, that's why y'all not gonna be able to find me. Where's Pastor? On his knees. Why? Because getting there and living there is even more important than what got you there. Does that make sense, everybody? So the same things that you did, the same relationship that you had with God, the same prayer life that you had, the same study life that you had, the same dependency that you had, you need to bring with you to your level of success. That makes sense when you say amen. All right, now, turn with me to Numbers 16. I want you to go to number 16. And here's what happens in number 16. It's amazing. Starting at verse 1, number 16 and verse 1. First way to handle success, don't forget God. Second way is here. Now Korah, the son of Izhar, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, with Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, and on the son of Peleth, sons of Reuben, took action. And they rose up before Moses, together with some of the sons of Israel, 250 leaders of the congregation, chosen in the assembly, men of renown. And they assembled together against Moses. And Aaron said to them, "You have gone far enough, for all the congregation are holy, every one of them, and the Lord is in their midst. So why do you exalt yourself above the assembly of the Lord?" Now I'm gonna tell you what's crazy. Now, in Exodus 20, because they told him, "Why do you exalt yourself?" God was getting ready to kill him. Every last one of them. They would not have experienced success unless Moses said, and not only was God going to kill him, but he said, "How about this? I wipe them out and build a nation through you." See, it'd be one thing to say, "Oh no, God, don't kill him. I'm going to build a nation through you." How many of them are you going to get rid of? You know what I'm saying? But but here's the thing. So Moses steps in, intercedes, so they're alive and getting ready to experience their dream because of Moses, along with God. And so the second way that we need to handle our success is don't forget the people that helped you get there. Folks, here is the thing that I found, that me, and I'm going to speak personally for a moment, I'm here where I am today because there were other people who made a decision to pour into my life. Are y'all following me? As a matter of fact, I can never forget that as I stand here and am able to experience relative success, because I know God has incredible things, that as I've been along my journey, I can never forget that there was a woman by the name of Sharon Kelly who said, "You know what? I am unable to be able to pay for my son to go into school, but you know what? He needs to be able to get to school, so I'm going to sacrifice everything that I have in order to be able to put him into school so that he can learn about God and about economics and all that other kind of stuff." I can never forget Michael Kelly who said, "You know what? We're struggling right now, but I need to bring my son into this particular environment and pour my time into him so he's not out there on the streets." I can never forget Henry Wright, who saw a young man in class who had no idea what a theology major was, but saw something in me and said, "Michael, I want you to work and be a part of the youth church that I'm starting at CPC." I didn't know who Henry Wright was. I know who he is now because he poured into my life. I can never forget Bertram Melbourne, who taught me one of the most important principles in my life. You might not know everything, but you better know where to find it. I'll never forget Dr. Ron C. Smith, that at 14 years old, when the only reason I was going to Berean is to see a young lady, but he touched me in such a way that the very seeds were planted in my life to become a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I can never forget Mark K. Woodson, who at 19 gave me a call and said, "Why don't you come work with me at Rubidoux?" I had no idea that one day I'd be back at Rubidoux, but I will never forget Those people helped me get here. And so that's why y'all gotta understand. When Henry Wright calls and asks me to go preach for him, I go. When Mark asks me to do something, I go. You know why? Because I'll never forget that it was because of them that I'm where I am today. And too many of us get there and forget the people who helped us get there. Now, I can even take that even further, because there are some people you don't know personally, but they've done some things for you to be able to sit at a table and get the same service as everybody else. You can't forget the people who got you there. And I'm gonna tell you, here's the thing that happens, that is created, this thing that the devil tries to create. He creates competition amongst us. A competition so that if I'm successful, it must mean you can't be. And so there are a lot of us who don't have people who help us because we're constantly in competition with them. And that's one of the things, I know y'all are sick and tired of telling me about talking about my small group, but it's been life-changing for me. One of the things I love about my small group is each of us have our own thing that we're doing. And we all help each other. And we're not in competition. And I understand that when I become successful in these different arenas and different things that God has laid on my heart to do, that are, yes, some included in Rubidoux and some that are not included in that, I know that there are a group of men who helped me get there. And when I get there, I'm not going to forget that. So when they need something, I'm going to give it. I'm going to tell them thank you. I'm going to pour back into them. I'm going to pour back into them. I'm going to pour back into them. Let me tell you one thing that's missing from my generation and what I love about the older generation defined as Elder Clavan's generation. Let me tell you something that y'all do, and the church has gotten a little bit away from it, and we need to do better, which is why there's this huge generation gap. You know what I love about the older generation? They take what they have from success and pour into others. My generation is forgetting how to do that. Because what we do is we pour into this, and we pour into ourselves. But in order for us to have there is not one person who has gotten to where they are without somebody else helping them get there. There's not one. And I've committed within myself that because someone did that for me, I'm going to be that for someone else. And not only because they did it for me, I've made a decision that I will never forget those people. And we don't handle our success when we forget those who helped us get along the way. Turn with me now to Judges. I'm almost done. Just got 2 more points. Turn with me to Judges. We'll look at Judges. We read this text about 2 weeks ago, I think it was. We'll look at Judges 2. Now we'll look at verse 28. Judges 2 and verse 28. Judges 2 and verse 28. Here's what the Bible says. It came about in Judges 2 and verse 28 when Israel became strong. They became what? Strong. Got their own land now. Strong. That they put the Canaanites to forced labor. But they did not drive them out completely. Ephraim did not drive out the Canaanites who were living in Gezer, so the Canaanites lived in Gezer among them. Zebulun did not drive out the inhabitants of Kitron or the inhabitants of Nahalol, so the Canaanites lived among them and became subject to forced labor. Not only do we forget God when we become successful, and we can't do that, not only do we forget the people who helped us get there, but sometimes when we become successful, we start treating people different. Now I'm gonna tell you this right now. Not only do we treat people different, but it's because somehow when we become successful, we look at ourselves differently. See, Israel used to be a slave. Used to be slaves. But now, we have our own land. We're successful. We're in charge. So now we're going to get some folk to work for us. We're going to treat people different. All right, let me help y'all out. know you a doctor now. But that doesn't mean that nobody else has an intelligent thought in their head. No, seriously. Just because you have 2 letters at the front and maybe 3 at the back does not mean that you are the smartest person in the room. Are y'all following me? You know, just because, watch this now, because here's what happens. We experience success in a degree. Now we've got our own business. Now we've got this. Now we used to be in the world and now we're in God. And we start treating folk different. And the fact of the matter is that in order to handle success, you actually have to treat people the same way you were when you weren't doctor, when you were out there on the street, when you had nothing in your name, behind your name, or could barely put 2 pencils together to spell your name. You need to treat people the same. But too many times success changes us in the way we talk to people, and that's why I'm just telling you all this. I don't care if you call me Michael. Some folk walking around get high. I'm pastor. It's also your birth certificate, dude. Now, I'm all for honoring the man of God, but y'all know that's why I don't mind getting my hands dirty with y'all. I don't mind moving this kind of stuff because people are people. And regardless of what level of success you or me or any of us arrive to, we must have a love and a treatment of people that is not different based on what we have become and what God has brought us to. And the moment we start treating people differently, I believe is the moment that God will begin to remove every part of the success from our lives. I can't stand it when folk start looking down on others, when they don't want to hang with certain people anymore, when they don't want to be and help other people get up anymore, that drives me crazy. And one of the quickest ways to not be able to handle your success is to start treating people different. And that's one of the greatest things I think about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. He's successful because he's God and he can't fail. But he never treated people differently because of who he was. And this is what, listen to me carefully. Listen to me carefully. We skip over this text all the time. God is not a respecter of persons. And we need to stop being that way. And that goes for each of us. You think I'm only talking about people with high, quote unquote, levels of success. Whatever success looks like for you, when you get there, don't forget to treat people the right way. Don't forget to treat people the right way. Now, the last way, I believe, to handle success, and I'm very fair and accurate with the Bible. I couldn't find a text, so I ain't gonna read you one and make it up. Oh, and this applies this way, and you gotta force it. We don't do that here. We exegete, which means if it's not there, we ain't gonna put it there. So this one ain't from the Bible, is that right? But I think this one matches as we just get ready to close and wrap this thing up. One of the ways that we need to handle success is not be selfish with our success. Don't be selfish with your success. Last year, I had the privilege and honor of, I got an phone call, then led to a phone call, then emails. Hey, this is so-and-so from the Dr. Phil show. Huh? Dr. Phil? Call, yeah, we'd love for you to get on a show and be a guest. We got this real crazy situation, but we need a pastor. And the first, sometimes the thought that goes through your mind is, that is awesome. They're watching RubyTV.tv. And Dr. Phil was like, get that dude right there. I was like, see, internet ministry at its best. That's not how it happened. As a matter of fact, we had to spell Rubidoux 6 times for them to get it right. So I put it on there. Dr. Phil, Rubidoux, So the question was, I asked, after they asked what I was going to do, I said, well, how did you do this? He said, well, you know someone by the name of Devon Franklin, don't you? So yeah, I know Devon. He said, well, we called him to ask him to be on the show. Devon said, watch this, I'd love to, but I know somebody else you should call. I know somebody else you should call. Give this guy a call. I think he'll be able to do what needs to be done. They called Devon because he's successful. I got on Dr. Phil because he shared his success. And see, when you have that mentality, God opens up the floodgates of success. Because he understands this, that when he makes you successful, that he is not only helping you, but he's helping anybody else who you come in contact with. Because he recognizes that if I can build up, and I'm gonna use this just for an example, if I can build up Devon, I know Devon's gonna help Michael. And I know that if Devon helps Michael, Michael's gonna help somebody else. And if Michael helps that other person, they'll help somebody else. And the cycle will begin to spread. But when you're selfish with success, when you're not willing to share your ideas, when you're not willing to share the spotlight, that would have been a great opportunity for Devon to continue and build his brand. But he said, you know what, God? I'm not going to be selfish with what you give. You've given me enough that it's running over. Let me give it to somebody else. And because of that, now there are different things happening in my life. What are other people missing out on because we're selfish with our success? Don't be selfish with your success. Use your influence to give somebody else an opportunity. Use your success to build up somebody else's brand. Use your success to pour into their business. Use your success to get them that interview that they could not have gotten without you. Use your success to introduce them to people that they never would have had an opportunity to be introduced to, but because God took you to a place now, you can bring others along with you. Don't be selfish with success. And so as we close this series, I believe that we're going to be successful. I know we are, because we have a God who says, I know the plans that I have towards you. Plans to prosper you. Remember what that Hebrew is? Success, all that stuff. That's what God thinks about every day. How can he do that? And we're going to take all the principles we've learned this month, and we're going to put that into an unstoppable momentum, focused intensity over time, multiplied by God equals momentum. But here's my challenge to us, Rubidoux. When you get there, don't forget God. Don't forget the people. Don't treat people differently. And don't be selfish with your success.